Oral questions by members.
Member for Surrey White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister for Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport please name the MLAs that he was referring to when he stated that he was asked directly for World Cup tickets?
Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, conversations happen in the hallways with new members, and I don't have any intent of sharing their names and embarrassing them in front of the House. At that stage, it's done. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the Minister said on April 8th was a serious allegation. We have talked to all members on our side of this House regarding the Minister of Tourism stating that he was asked directly for World Cup tickets. He said on April 8th, and I quote, "I know not everybody on that side maybe supports soccer, but I do know some of the members were asking me for tickets. I don't have any tickets to give you, members. You'll have to buy them just like the general public when they become available." So, Mr. Speaker, that leads us to two conclusions. Either this minister has chosen to mislead the House, or those ticket requests are coming from his own caucus. Which is it?
Members, please continue.
Or the minister can get up in this House and name the MLAs that have asked him directly for World Cup tickets.
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, I have private conversations with members from all parties, but, I don't want to expose the new members. On that side, I would say, and maybe the other option that the member didn't consider is his caucus members haven't been telling him the full truth.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Anti-Semitism is not a joke. Racism is never acceptable and it must never be normalized. A newly elected Vancouver councillor has made deeply troubling statements, including invoking anti-Semitic tropes and mocking Jewish identity by referring to a secret cabal of Jews. In response to someone saying they wanted the destruction of both Israel and Canada, he replied, quote, "Me too, son, me too," end quote. Will the Premier finally step up as a leader and repudiate Sean Orr for these vile anti-Semitic statements?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank the member for the question as well as the statement that was made yesterday in this House. We know that the comments, I'm hearing from people directly, that the comments made by this new councillor have caused real hurt and pain for many within the Jewish community. And the community has been feeling a lot of fear over the last few years, in particular with the rise of anti-Semitism related incidences. We, of course, stand against hate and racism and anti-Semitism. We've said that many times. The member will perhaps not know, but we created an independent Human Rights Commission in British Columbia to address that very core question. Work closely with the Jewish community on that. Honourable Speaker, I don't know why this needs to be heckled. This is an important topic. So we're going to continue to work with the community, and of course this councillor will have to respond and address the harms that his comments have made, but I'll leave it to that councillor to do that.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect, my question was for the Premier, and my question was about repudiating those specific comments. Sean Orr isn't the only person who has an anti-Semitism problem. As we learned from former NDP Cabinet Minister Selina Robinson, the NDP and the BC Public Service has a systemic anti-Semitism problem. Members of the British Columbia Jewish community should not be singled out for hate by their government or their elected representatives. What actions is this Premier taking to root out systemic anti-Semitism identified by his former minister, besides just setting up a hotline?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have stood up in unprecedented ways to stop the rise of anti-Semitism and hate in this province. That goes as far as to putting direct resources into community members, setting up safe zones around schools, launching a racist incident helpline, which has received more than 600 calls where people can call and receive resources and referrals when they're experiencing hate. We all have to stand together to condemn the rise of anti-Semitism in this province and in the world. We stand with the Jewish people and fighting against anti-Semitism. I'll continue to do everything I can as Attorney General to make sure our systems are tooled up to respond and continue to meet with the community to make sure that we are responding to their needs. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue and it's something we take very seriously.
Member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This year, British Columbia
Oh,
received...
sorry, member, I skipped again. Third party, House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The report on reforming the Police Act recommended improving the province's response to mental health emergencies. When a crisis occurs, we must use an appropriate response. A mental health crisis does not often fit into the existing options of police, fire, or ambulance. Adding a mental health option to 911, as recommended by the Police Act Committee and the Canadian Mental Health Association, would vastly improve well-being and safety of British Columbians. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, will you create a fourth option to 911 that is dedicated to responding to mental health calls with the appropriate level of response?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for his question. He is correct. The Committee to Reform the Police Act has examined at length an option when you call 911 for mental health to be identified. That is something that currently is underway, and in the near future I expect that there will be a determination made that will satisfy his question. Thank you.
Member supplemental.
Since the year 2000, there have been more than 800 deaths in Canada due to police use of force. Black and Indigenous people comprise less than 9% of Canada's population, but account for over 27% of police-involved shooting deaths. Many of these victims were experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of their deaths. These deaths were preventable. Peer-assisted care teams have had a demonstrable impact in the communities where they are operational, showing that there is a path forward for non-police emergency response. Through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Public Safety, when will your government modernize emergency mental health response by expanding peer-assisted care teams across the province? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite raises an important question about policing and how it is enacted in this province. On the Committee to Reform the Police Act, one of the things we looked at was various response that are not police-related, things that very clearly from the outset do not have their base in criminal activity. You will be pleased to know, member, that the conditions that govern police as it relates to responding to persons with mental illnesses have been adjusted all across the country, so that one of the things they consider first is whether or not the base is a mental health issue. Now, various jurisdictions across the country, including in British Columbia, have made allowances and do have today peer-assisted teams at work throughout the province.
Member for Peace River North.
Mr. Speaker, my fellow MLA did quite the little ditty on Tuesday in regard to our failing infrastructure system. And it rang true. He sang about the Taylor Bridge falling down. The actual name of this bridge is the Peace River Bridge. And did you know the original bridge did fall down? in 1957. Massive payloads go over this bridge every day as we move our vast resources to support the large wealth and revenue of British Columbia. We need this critical bridge to be replaced with a new one that is capable of handling British Columbia's essential trade goods. The people of my region have been promised a new bridge for over 20 years, and still we have holes in the bridge decking over and over and over. The bridge has been fixed so many times that it's probably more weld repair than original steel. Mr. Speaker, can the minister finally give a deadline for the constituents of Peace Region of when the construction of a new 4-lane bridge will begin before history repeats itself and then it could be named the Farney Bridge is falling down?
Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. I can tell him that we recognize, obviously, the importance of the Taylor Bridge in terms of its importance to his region of the province, but indeed the province's transportation system as a whole. I can tell him that there is work underway in terms of what the long-term options are around the bridge. There is significant work in terms of looking at 3 phases in terms of the structural assessment around the current bridge. There will be additional work being done later this year. I have met with the member from Peace River South, for example, who's also come to see me to talk about the importance of the bridge. The previous MLA for North Peace River has also been working with me in the past in terms of how this bridge needs to be replaced. What we're ensuring is that it continues to be safe, is inspected on a regular basis, but the work that's required so that we can get to the point deciding what the best option in terms of replacing it is and what it should look at is currently underway.
Member, before a member asks the supplemental question, just a reminder, no names to be said in the question. Member, supplemental.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. I think when it comes to the song that I would pick, it would probably be Garth Brooks' I Have Friends in Lowly Places. Because taxpayers are being driven into poverty. We need to actually start doing the major infrastructure upgrades necessary for our province to flourish and become self-sufficient and get rid of the trade barriers across Canada. This has to be done for BC to go forward, not focus on pulling Kentucky bourbon off of the shelves. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier commit that if tolls, fees, levies are applied, that the money will be used to pay for critical and vital infrastructure upgrades across British Columbia and not just be used as a slush fund of broken promises to British Columbians?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I can tell the honourable member that when it comes to infrastructure in this province, this government is currently ending more than $15 billion in terms of transportation infrastructure across British Columbia. The member talks about the Peace River. We recognize the importance of that. More than $188 million has been invested since we have been in power. $29 million has gone into ensuring that the planning work and work that needs to take place around the Taylor Bridge has been underway. There will be further announcements on that in the not-too-distant future, in the near future, in fact. We know the importance of the Taylor Bridge to British Columbia. It will need to be replaced. What I can tell you right now is we are starting the work to ensure that when it's replaced, it meets the needs of a growing province. It meets the needs of a province that wants to diversify trade. It meets the need of a province that is not just British Columbia, but 10 provinces and 3 territories, and that's what this government is committed to doing.
Member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Glad to be back again. This year, British Columbia received an F for poverty, an F for housing, and an F for government support from Food Banks Canada. Mr. Speaker, why does the Minister of Poverty Reduction continue to claim progress when every independent measure shows her ministry is failing across the board?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are very concerned about the impacts of global inflation and now the extra threat of uncertainty created by tariffs and the impacts on people. We all hear and feel the pressures on people every day. What I will say, though, is that there was no poverty reduction strategy until this government came into place. Social assistance rates were frozen for a decade. When the Leader of the Opposition was sitting at the cabinet table, we've increased rates 5 times. We've increased minimum wage 7 times after that. When the Leader of the Opposition was in government, his Minister of Social Development removed the disability bus pass from people with disabilities. We returned it, and the list goes on. We have got a lot more work to do, but we'll hold our record up against the Leader of the Opposition's any day.
Member for Delta South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after 32 years in his home, Ken, an 86-year-old South Delta constituent of mine, was evicted, given 5 minutes to gather what he could, and left to sleep in his car. He was denied income assistance because he owned the vehicle he was forced to sleep in. This is how BC treats its seniors after a lifetime of work and contributing to this economy. How does the Social Development Minister justify a system that punishes struggling seniors and abandoning them completely?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That sounds like a terrible story, and I hope that the member will bring that directly to my office so we can find out what happened. After the age of 65, income supports are delivered by the federal government, not the provincial government, but nevertheless, we are very concerned about seniors' poverty. We did double the senior...
Members. Member.
Excellent.
Member.
Well, I'm hearing the member yell that he has sent it to my office, and I will get back to him this afternoon with what we found. But again, I'll say we are working, we have targeted poverty reduction, and we've been pushing the federal government to add income supports. And when the federal government supports for seniors are inadequate, then we are doing our best to provide emergency supports for seniors. If any members have got challenges, please do bring them to my office, and we'll work together.
Thank you. Member for Kelowna Centre.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Low-income British Columbians are struggling to make ends meet, and the actions of this NDP government are only making things worse. Income assistance in BC is $935 a month. Rentals.ca reported this morning that the average rent for a 1-bedroom in Vancouver is over $2,500. How does this Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction expect anyone to survive when government support doesn't even cover half the rent?
Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all feel in every community the impact of global inflation and absolutely the impact of housing costs on people across every income level. That's why we've been investing so much, both in building out affordable housing and also just, for example, this week with the support of the Green Party, expanding the SAFER and RAP grants to be able to apply rent relief to people in particularly high markets. We have increased the shelter rate twice already under this government for exactly that reason. And importantly, because although we've increased income assistance rates 5 times, where the Leader of the Opposition had frozen, his government had frozen rates for a decade, we also recognize that income assistance alone is not enough for people to work on. That's why to live on. And that's why we've been working so hard to increase the earnings threshold so that people can add employment income, and through the work of our Work BC centres and partners across the province, supporting people who have been alienated from the workforce so that they can add earned employment income along with income assistance.
Member for Abbotsford West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rather than supporting people living with disabilities, this NDP government is actively holding them back. The income cutoff for disability assistance is a mere $19,440 for a household per year. 2 people expected to survive on less than $1,620 a month during affordability crisis. Mr. Speaker, does the Minister of Social Development seriously believe that's enough for 2 people with disabilities to live in British Columbia with dignity?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely, the work that we have been doing as a government to build supports for people living with disabilities has been at the center of our work. That's why we brought in British Columbia's first accessibility legislation. That's why we have increased rates for people with disabilities, again, which the previous BC Liberal government, the leader of the opposition, froze. Well, that's why we have made 5 increases to disability rates since 2017, the largest by any government in British Columbia ever. Since 2017, the rate for a single person is up 74% from where we found it when we formed government. And this year, our budget invests another $1.6 billion over 3 years to support expanded income disability assistance. There is more for us to do, but our record of investing people is clear, and we will continue to do that work.
Member for Abbotsford Mission.
Mr. Speaker, children deserve our love, our support, and our protection. But in British Columbia, while children make up just 15% of the population, they are 30% of food bank users. Can this social development minister explain how a government that claims to care about kids allows 1 in 3 food bank users to be a hungry child?
Minister of Social Development. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What we hear is a deep need for people to have access to nutritious, affordable food wherever they are. We absolutely have front-ended our investments into making sure that children get their very best start. Our work that we funded directly through the United Way to establish food hubs in communities in all corners of the province has been a very important part of that work, knitting together community response. And especially encouraging is when I see the work of my ministry linking into the work with the Ministry of Education and Childcare for the first time for our province to have invested in school food programs so that kids start their day with a good meal. It's foundational. It's work that has never been funded at this rate by any provincial government in BC, and the need has never been deeper.
Member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CEO at Community Living BC gets a $12,000 vehicle allowance on top of a $300,000 salary. All the while, families across BC are $200 away from not being able to pay their bills every month. Mr. Speaker, why is the Poverty Reduction Minister supporting luxury lifestyles while food banks across this province are maxed out?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Which way to take the member's question? The investments that we have made in expanding supports for adults with developmental disabilities who are served by the Crown Agency, Community Living BC, expanded again this year because people with disabilities are living longer. That is a good news story, but the caseload has increased. The focus, absolutely, 97% of the budget goes directly to people that need supports, and we hear from families and adults with developmental disabilities that they need more support. And that's why, again, this year's budget has expanded by an additional $380 million over 3 years to support the increase in clients supported by Community Living BC. We will continue to do that work.
Member for Langley Willowbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 67% of youth aging out of care go to bed hungry. 90% can't afford 3 meals a day. How does this social development minister explain a system that lets young people enter adulthood starving and in debt after growing up in government care?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem that the member names is exactly why British Columbia's first homelessness strategy invested very first in young people leaving foster care. I remember so clearly the words of Premier Horgan saying, if children were removed from their families, it's our government's responsibility to set them up in the very best way. That's why we've extended the age of majority for children to age 26. I'm looking at the minister, and that's exactly so that we can bridge in those ways so that young people have the very best start. They have $600 more every month to go towards rent. This is the SAGE program. And that gives us an opportunity for kids leaving foster care to get connected with the nutritious food, with the income supports, with free tuition that we've made available at every college and university. This is all work to have young people exiting care be on their very best step and make life more affordable for them.
Member for Boundaries, Milkameen.
Indigenous people in BC face poverty rates nearly twice the provincial average. It's even higher for children in our rural communities. When will this Minister of Poverty Reduction start providing the basic supports Indigenous families need to survive?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we asked people across British Columbia, as we rebuilt our poverty reduction strategy, which was tabled in this House this year, we heard from people all across the province, 70% of whom had direct lived experience with poverty. A significant number were Indigenous people, and we did a completely separate Indigenous stream. The advice that we got is built directly into our poverty reduction strategy. We're working with partners, meeting with leaders from across nations, from every First Nation, to talk about how between federal income support delivery and off-reserve, off-nation income support delivery, which comes from the province, how we can work together to get the very best connection. We're absolutely concerned and working together with First Nations leadership about how we can build systems that are culturally informed and helping people change their lives for the better.
House Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I heard the minister reflect that they've launched a poverty reduction strategy in 2019. But, Mr. Speaker, this government has had 8 years, 3 mandates, 2 premiers, and all we've seen is a record number of food bank users across the province of British Columbia. We're talking about a ministry that gives a CEO $12,000 car allowance. When I have a constituent, Mary Jean, I hope that you're watching, who suffered a stroke at 53 and was forced to return to work in excruciating pain just to survive. She lives with her adult disabled son who cannot work, and together they rely on 2 next-to-nothing disability checks. Very careful, of course, for her hours as to not suffer clawbacks on her limited income. Since then, we've seen all of the members on this side, and I'm sure the House could agree, that food insecurity and housing has become unaffordable.
Question, member.
My question is the same question that Mary Jean came to ask me in my office. And that is, what is the purpose of government if it cannot support its most vulnerable? And do she and her son have the human right to live?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people that are at the heart of this work, just as the member cites. This is exactly why we're in government, to build the systems that combat the impacts.
Member.
Yeah, they're heckling. I haven't even said 3 words already. So this is exactly what motivates our government. We see across the globe the impacts of global inflation. We see people in every corner of the province, at every corner of...
Members, let her conclude.
Shall I wait
please.
for the members to stop heckling, Mr. Speaker? Oh, for goodness sakes. Okay, the member says we haven't taken action. We have increased minimum wage 7 times. We have increased income assistance 74%.
Members.
We have decreased the...
Member will come to order.
We've decreased...
Obviously, the opposition is not interested in listening answers, so let's end the question period. Bell ends the question period.